everybody? This is the Flex Network back again for our Friday night Flex Finder podcast. Joining me, as always, to the column to my right, one at Alan Seslowski at ALANSES Low Sky. What's going on, brother? You're on location today.
I'm in location in some dingily lit sort of background here. Shane's with us here. I've captured him. I put a wig on him. There he is. There's Shane. I told you I'm in a creepy room. It's some sort of I've been captured. I'm in a basement. No, I'm visiting family, so that's why the poor lighting and without my regular setup. But dude, Friday night, man, I'm ready to flex, man. I got some good stuff. I can't believe it's Friday already. This is literally one of my favorite hours of the week when we get to hang out and talk some football.
Oh yes, everybody, tune in to our Sunday morning shows with Roster Watches Byron Lambert as we discuss your week 8 start sits. But says, I wanted to start this podcast a little bit crazy with Halloween coming around. Says it's a spooky time. It is one that I'm walking into cobwebs every which way I go. And I wanted to talk about, before we get to our flexes of the week for our Flex Finder, I want to get a little discussion going on some of the things this year in fantasy football that has you spooked. Says, hit me with just a little nugget of knowledge on something that might just have you a little spooked.
Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, is Halloween? I'm wondering if Halloween's big out where you are in Seattle. In Florida, it's not as big as it was in New York. But what's got me spooked is the uncertainty at QB this year. This is what's been totally different than year. This was, in past, our draft advice was wait on QB. Only fools take Deshaun Watson early. If you want to reach in the 7th round for Baker Mayfield, okay, that's good value. It's just been a total a minefield at quarterback this year. And we're picking up guys like Matt Moore in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. That has been the scariest, spookiest thing. I know, right? Right. I mean, I've had to start him in one league because even in most one quarterback leagues where you have 12 teams, people are rostering 2 QBs. And if you have someone like Josh Allen, I mean, you are thrilled this year. Aaron Rodgers hadn't performed until he had that mega throbber game last week. So the scariest thing for me, top of my list, was just when you thought it was safe to not take a QB early. Oh, great. You took Davante Adams in the first round. Awesome. He hasn't given you anything except for that 1 week.
Man, Davante Adams, that I was going through today, just in my head, the list of guys that have just, if you drafted them in the 1st or 2nd round, you're likely completely not even close to being a winner. One for me is Juju Smith-Schuster. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, we can go through the whole first 2 rounds in a minute. That's a really good exercise. But do you agree that QB has been like a scary, like you said, a spooky for Halloween? That's been the scariest thing this year. It's like unless you have one of those 2 or 3 guys you're certain with week in, week out, you're like thrilled to start Ryan Tannehill this week.
Let's talk about spooky with QBs here. The Madden curse, always finding its way to rear its head. I am so sorry. We had some commenters during there, and I was getting so spooked out by this QB thing here. We got Michael Yeager, WikiLeaker. This guy's a fan. He's a total fan. This guy is. We love this guy. Yeah, boy. Thank you. Michael Walters over there. Flex, Mike, Chia, boys. Yes, this is time for us to talk about how spooky things have been this year, starting with QBs. Al said, yes, it is quite spooky this year, Al. Obviously.
I mean, it's just scary, man. It's like, in Dynasty too. It's like, in Superflex too. It's like, it has been just a total minefield this year. I mean, with the Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, Patrick Mahomes obviously is the big one you were alluding to before. And then there's just been underperforming QBs. I mean, you and I were both aggressive on Baker Mayfield for good reason, and it just hasn't worked out. So that would be my number one spooky thing. I'd be interested to you, what scared you the most this year? What made you surprised? But what was really scary? What was spooky to you?
Well, let me tell you here, Says. There's lots of things, Says, that are very spooky this year. And to me, the spookiest thing of the year, Says, is how in the world did Cooper Kupp come back from his injury? I think he got injured like in February of last year or something like that.
Yeah, it was week nine. But yeah, your point is well taken.
Yes, you know what else is spooky? Go ahead.
You look like the DJ Deadmau5 on crack.
I
mean, literally. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll just talk to you,
Let's guys keep going who drink White Claws are spooky? No, they're not, sir. No, they're not. Who else has been very spooky? On behalf of
America.
Says, what do you think about the complete? We should have this guy on a milk carton. Says, O.J. Howard is missing from fantasy football. O.J. Howard, it is spooky out here. Says, where is O.J. Howard?
Yeah, now he just suffered a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for this following week. I've had him in a league, and I think I'm throwing my hands up. I'm going to get out the scissor and give it a cut. I'm going to look for any sort of upside running back to stash. I mean, in some cases, you probably can't. If you're just desperate at tight end, you got to hold O.J. Howard, hoping it comes around. But in the league where I have O.J. Howard, I have Austin Hooper as well and got him late. So I think now that, one, he hasn't been productive, and now he's going to be out with, a hamstring, I'm going to snip him. You cool with cutting him in a 12-team league?
I've cut him already in many 12-team leagues.
Yeah.
Especially
Smart.
because I was a Hunter Henry guy, and I was very often getting both. I was very contrarian early in the season, or early in the draft season, that I was way incredibly too high on tight end, way incredibly too high. The most consistency in redrafts this year for me was Kittle in the first round or early second round, and Hunter Henry in like the 6th round. I went double tight end this year. That was my consistency. When I couldn't get Kittle because I went Dalvin Cook, which is looking like a great play this year in fantasy football.
I mean, if we redrafted today, where would you? I'm just asking you. I mean, you brought up a really good point, so I want to ask you about it. What you talk about Dalvin Cook? If we redrafted today for the rest of the year, where would Cook go?
Well, now says, thank you. That is called a segue in radio. We are actually toying with the idea. I think we're almost there. Is we might have a mid-year redraft league starting up here in this next week. I'm going to be reaching out all the feelers for the Flex Network. It'd be real interesting to reanalyze a mid-season draft for redraft. Yeah. So guys that people are willing to actually, jump a couple rounds up on. We've been talking over the last couple, or Darren Waller. Where would
Darren,
like we talked about.
Darren Waller would go in the end of the second round. I mean, but to answer my question, where do you think Dalvin would go? Would he be like a top 3 pick at this point? Would you take him above? You take him. All right. So who would it be? Who would you take 1? Christian McCaffrey. I think we would all agree would go number 1. And then who would you take 2? I mean, would you take Barkley or Dalvin Cook?
No, I would take Zeke.
Okay. I mean, the upside's been capped, but, I think that's a real thing.
Yeah, but he's so consistent. He's so consistent.
Okay.
I'm still not exactly sold on Dalvin Cook's consistency. What I'm a little nervous is how great Alexander Mattison looks. I mean, Roster Watch posted on Twitter during that game that I think Alexander Mattison had something like 50 yards called back for penalty. If you had to add that 50 yards based off opportunity, that guy's getting 100 yards a game when he's in there and being utilized. That just kind of scares me a little. So I would knock them down a little bit. But what about someone like a Travis Kelce, a very early favorite as a top, maybe first, early second round pick? I might say might be a couple tight ends someone would like over a Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I think that if we redrafted today, Kelce would probably go in that fourth round. If somebody just didn't pay attention to the numbers and went on name brand, they'd probably take him in the third. But I think the fourth, where Evan Ingram was going at the peak of draft season, was probably be more realistic. And I think he'd be replaced, like you said before, Darren Waller. I mean, here's the question. Darren Waller, yeah, he gets his every week. We would definitely take him in the second round, or maybe early third, the worst. But tight end 1 on the year is Austin Hooper. Are you buying that? Like, would you think if we redrafted today, Austin Hooper would be the first tight end off the board, or would he just fall somewhere in like the 5th round?
Yeah,
guy gets his every week.
The question is, would I buy into that? And yes, actually today in a tight end premium league, I was offered Austin Hooper up for a trade. Now I won't lay out the whole details, but it involved Baby Chark and Josh Jacobs in a dynasty tight end premium league. And I sat there thinking a lot about Austin Hooper. I said, man, could I potentially buy into this guy right now? And how smart would I be to throw my chips in against Austin Hooper? And you've really helped me see the light on the Austin Hooper, especially now that Sanu's gone, and we'll get to that later. But says another spooky thing this year, outside of where Cooper Kupp has been, on a surge forward, but also what about Sam Darnold seeing ghosts? Okay, New England we don't talk a lot about defense on this team here, but wow, it's spooky to see the New England defense. I mean, you could trade him for Christian Kirk right now, probably in a redraft, wouldn't you think? Maybe in a season long. But geez, the Patriots defense has been winning games for that owner consistently week to week. That's scary. That's scary to me.
So if you rank the Patriots defense on the year, they'd be the 19th overall fantasy player, which means right now they'd be a mid-late second round pick. So yeah, fantasy player 19 overall. So you could probably trade them. If you could find someone in your league, I bet you could trade a solid running back for them. I bet you could find, would it be if someone had a couple extra running backs and they're, and they were a championship contender? It sounds aggressive, but I bet you could trade them for Aaron Jones, who you could sell this in the timeshare. That sounds like crazy. Who would do that? But when you look at the Patriots points, now they've had an easy schedule. I don't think they're going to be 20 points a game for the rest of the season. They'll probably be more like 11 to 12, but you're happy with that for your defense. Hey, Sully said he loves Hooper. Hooper has just been a superstar this year. It's amazing. But yeah, Patriots D, I have them in one league, a redraft league, and I was trying to kind of eyeball around what kind of running back I can get for them. Who do you think would be reasonable?
Well, if a team is winning, right? So let's say you got a 5-2 or a 6-1 or something like that right now, and let's say you're me. And you have a Christian McCaffrey and a Dalvin Cook, first round, second round, Godwin in the third round, and you're just murdering it. For some reason, the other chumps in the league let you have Ty Johnson. Okay? And maybe you just don't need someone like Ty Johnson week to week. If you can go out there and get the Patriots defense, I might like that play. Maybe give me a little something more. Give me a Patriots defense and give me a Robbie Anderson.
I got one for you. Would you trade away Chase Edmonds for the New England defense right now? That's, go ahead.
I'm not a DJ owner.
Yeah, no, yeah. You're just, DJ
just
looking
guy.
Banged up. Yeah, just
I don't have DJ on my team. I just happen to get Chase Edmonds off of waivers. Would I off him for the Patriots D right now?
Yeah, or the opposite. Would you, do you think that's a fair, is that the neighborhood of player we're talking about? Or is that just too, it's short term in your mind? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
No, I
what
like
type
that.
of a player?
I would say that would be something to think about. Yeah, for sure. A Darrell Henderson,
Right, but those guys, I think the New England Patriots owner would say no to that. Like, I don't even think they would do it for like a Hoist Freeman. It would have to be someone that's flashy,
Wow.
that has upside. Like even the Sony Michel owner says no to that. Like those running backs are so hard to. They're not hard to It's like in Dynasty. They're not hard to find, but they're hard to acquire. Nobody wants to trade running backs in Dynasty. It's so when you bring it back to a redraft conversation, the New England Patriots defense, like, they're certainly a sell high. They're not going to be better than they are right now from a fantasy perspective. So this is the time to get out and see what you can get. And I'm trying to ask you is, what do you think you can get? You think Robbie Anderson is the best we could do with that?
Well, that's a great one. Yeah, that'd be tough because to me, I just don't feel like the trend is that defenses are falling away more than they're coming back. And so I just don't feel like it's sexy enough for somebody to open up the app and click yes on a Patriots defense trade.
Right.
But I mean, give it a shot, right? Give it a shot. See what your teammates want. I mean, geez, you can always stream defenses. That's exactly why I want to remove the position. Says, do you have one more scary thing before we get into our flex finders?
Yeah, I alluded to it before, but the first 2 rounds of fantasy drafts, man, it was the scariest thing I've seen in a really long time. I mean, if you open up almost any redraft league, I mean, you literally go through it. Not even in Superflex. Like if you just go through like a regular draft and look at the draft board. I mean, let's go through it. Okay, we agreed Christian McCaffrey was a great pick. We agreed Saquon Barkley was kind of a sketchy pick too, but you're fine with it. Okay, Alvin Kamara has been hurt. Then you look at the rest of the board. Devontae Adams, been nothing for you. Le'Veon Bell has been terrible by Le'Veon Bell standards. Hopkins is disappointed. Zeke, like you said, has been consistent, but he hasn't had the upside. Julio's been just okay.
You're happy to have Hopkins, though. I think you'd be happy to have Hopkins,
yeah, but you're happy to have Hopkins in context to what everything else has happened in the first and second round.
Right.
But he hasn't given you what you thought you were gonna get. That's my point.
Not at all.
Michael Thomas was the right answer. So to answer your question, Matt, it's like, what's a spooky, scary thing? How many busts there have been in the first 20 picks?
Do you think that this is the start of a trend or start of consistency, or is this an outlier?
Outlier. I mean, are you gonna take DJ Shark or Terry McLaurin over Devontae Adams next year?
Well, no, but
right.
But I would say that I would take Catch TMC in early, potentially next
third round.
Yeah, no.
Third round.
His quarterback situation still sucks. I mean,
so the 3-4 turn. Like, okay, here you go. Would you take Juju Smith-Schuster or Terry McLaurin next year?
I would have to take Juju. I would have to take Juju.
Right. Well, that's my point. Is that these guys that have disappointed, people are still the ADP is still gonna push them in the first 3 rounds, and presumably it will happen with the first 2.
Yeah, that says that is scary. That is real scary. Hey, why don't you bring Shane back into the? What does Shane think is scary here?
So as I've told you, I put Shane in a wig in this creepy costume right here. Hey, we've taxidermied him. I mean, is this not the creepiest fucking thing you've ever seen in your life? This is sitting in the room where I'm going to sleep tonight.
Thing?
No, I'm at my family's house, and this doll is sitting here in the bedroom, the spare bedroom, which I'm in doing this podcast, and I'm scared to death of this thing. It's not staying in this room when I go to sleep. I can tell you that.
You're sleeping in there? Oh no, dude, that does not sound like something that I am interested in. And let's get to something I am interested in. Our flex finders, let's, I feel like, sometimes I've been throwing, just deep plays in there, just to do it. But I think this week it's just a really important week out there. Some teams 3-3 or 3-4, 4-3, 5-2. You got a lot of variables out there amongst teams, especially like with you said, enough of the first and second round busts. Okay, those don't make us happy. What makes us happy is winning. And this week, we will fire away the winning picks for our Week 8 sleigh jobs. In the flex position, says, hit me with the beautiful first one.
Well, I think you're going to like this. And I hope you don't call me a hypocrite because I've been so against this player. And I saw you pick him up in one of our more important leagues, and I was a little jealous, I have to say. But I think Corey Davis is back in play. Yeah. A lot of people gave up on, he's been a disappointment since he got in the league in fantasy, but he's one of those players where he's too good to drop and not good enough to play. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, and those are the worst kind of players to draft. And, we all thought, Tannehill's got to be an upgrade. He came in and, sure enough, he stabilized Corey Davis. Now we see it again this week. I think he's back in play as a wide receiver 3. You picked him up off waivers. I'm sure he got dropped and picked up in many of the leagues. I would plug him in this week in a good matchup against Tampa, and I think there's upside for a top 10 finish. He's still only 24 years old. Like I said, Tannehill is like Andy Dalton. He's good enough to make the offense function. He was in a bad situation in Miami. I think Corey Davis
flexed. Corey Davis, let me ask you something about Corey Davis. Are you in or are you out on Corey Davis? What if he goes to a new team? What if he's being quarterbacked by somebody different? What if the scheme is different? I personally was never impressed by the athletic profile coming out of college. I felt like in the draft, he got lucky coming out when he did. I think that he was the best receiver coming out of the draft on a lot of people's boards, just based off the lack of talent, I think. Especially during those times, there was a lot of early busts. It seemed to have happened around that time a lot. But in an Odell Beckham draft class, third rounder, to me, that's to me.
I mean, Corey Davis at Western Michigan was he set the record for all-time yards in the NCAA. I mean, he was a production monster, and he has size and speed. And he may not be like an all-star elite talent that can transcend a bad quarterback. Like Odell Beckham, you brought up his name. That's a great example. He's had a Hall of Fame career with the carcass of Eli sitting, throwing him the football. But You talk about Corey Davis, he might just be a very good player that doesn't function when he has a bad quarterback. And we saw, they had a little bit of an upgrade. I'll put that in air quotes for those of you listening. You saw some life come in. Now, Titans are presumably going to do what the Eagles did for Carson Wentz. They have a championship team. They just need a quarterback. So what I think they're going to do next year is probably trade up, offer a couple or maybe a triple pair of one at the farm to get either Joe Burrow or Tua, and then start building from there. So I was out on Corey Davis. I agreed with you. I didn't love him coming in. I thought he was overdrafted, but his college production was there, and he has size and speed. And so far I could see it going either way. But last week renewed my faith in him.
Yeah, something says that I will always hate you for forever and ever and ever and ever. Not hate, disloathe.
I understand what you mean.
Is I had to wait so long to roster Ryan Tannehill on my team.
I know where you're going with this.
I had to let him go because Mariota was looking good a little bit early in the season.
Give context. Give context. We're talking about a Superflex
Dynasty. Right. I picked him up last year when somebody dropped. I held him all year now, and I finally had to cut bait. Even on I have a 2 quarterback team in Superflex Dynasty. And now, how happy would I have been to hold on to Ryan Tannehill?
We all have stories like that, so you shouldn't feel bad. We all have situations where we cut, and I don't even think that one's that bad because Tannehill's not going to be the quarterback there next year. They're going to trade up and get.
Yeah, but Tannehill's a good QB. I mean, you put him in the game.
He's fine.
He's vanilla. He's
functional.
Consistent. He can win games.
I
the flex play this week with Corey Davis.
Oh, totally. But I was going to say that my worst drop in Dynasty was I drafted Tyler Boyd in my home dynasty league, and he did nothing in year 1. He did less than nothing in year 2. So I dropped him in year 3, and then he broke out. So, it's those things happen all the time. I mean, there's going to be guys that you drop that you just regret it. So
despicable. Well, that is your first flex play on the week. My first flex play is one where guess the number one matchup against opposing running backs this week based off Roster Watch's matchup tool. Follow them at Roster Watch. What is the number one running back matchup on the week? Take a guess. I love these games. I'm all about games.
So you're saying is which defense it gives up the most yards or the most production of running backs? Is that really what this comes down
to? Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's got to be the Dolphins are the worst, right?
Cincinnati is the number one matchup against running backs. And here's the thing. I think the Rams go into a bye next week. Okay. Gurley been a little banged up. Okay. Up 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Why in the world would you play your star running back who has injury concerns? My first flex play on the week is Darrell Henderson. Okay.
I like this one.
I am literally playing Gurley's team in one of my most important leagues this week, and I am so happy I get to flex Henderson over Gurley. Projected goes from 19 to 1. We see a game that we saw last week from David Johnson. Put Darrell Henderson in the flex play, and if he doesn't show out this week, done with him. We're going against Cincinnati with a bye next week. Tell me why this is a good play.
Oh, no, this is an amazing play. In fact, I was tinkering around with some of my lineups. I put Henderson in, put him out. Hearing you verbalize it and communicate it to me, and I see how emotionally kind of tied to this pick you are. It makes me have some positive vibes about it as well. So I'm gonna use your energy and put Henderson back into my lineups where I was tinkering around with him. I was playing like him or Mike Williams. Thank you. Push that energy towards me. I love it. I feel it. But no, this is really smart. And the fact that you brought up that they're coming out of the bye, or they're going into the bye next week. They want to. This is a good matchup. They can get up early. I could see Darrell Henderson going on cleanup duty, basically mopping up the fourth quarter, and he looked explosive. He looked like he was going through the tackles, going around the outside. I've heard he's had some deficiencies in his pass blocking, presumably, which is why he hasn't been on the field. But I think this is a really strong flex play. Nice job.
What is really spooky is the fact that Gurley's actually been producing this year. You've been happy that you drafted him where you drafted him. But Darrell Henderson is my first flex play on the week. Number 2 flex play. Tell it to the angry, crazy bunny.
I am creeped out by your angry bunny weirdness there. For those of you listening on the audio cast, Flex Matt is disappeared, and this some sort of cockamamie bunny has appeared. I guess he's wearing his Halloween costume. But flex play number 2. Currently on the season, I'm just taking a look here at my rankings. He's wide receiver 42, but Josh Gordon is gone, and Philip Dorsett is going to be my flex play. He is the only, he's the only outside receiver. He's going to be the primary guy. Of course, Julian Edelman will still work the inside of the field, but Tom Brady trusts Philip Dorsett, and he's going to go deep to him. Now, when they play the Browns this week, they're going to get some of their strong cornerbacks back, but I'm not so sure that really matters. Philip Dorsett's going to get the opportunity. Whether he does something with it, who knows? So I like Philip Dorsett in a tough wide receiver pinch week.
Last week I will make a confession to you. Last week, okay? Number 1 is people should listen to the Flex Network, okay? Last week, Flex Shane told everybody that Tavon Austin was going to score a touchdown. Okay,
boy, that wasn't even his best. That wasn't his best.
When you, I, and Byron Lambert was discussing a flex play with Marvin Jones, we just wrote Marvin Jones off. We thought that Golladay was going to have such a huge game. 4 touchdowns, Marvin Jones. Flex Shane was the only voice of reason saying, play Marvin Jones. Okay.
Yeah, we shamed him when he said that. We all went, ew, gross, horrible. You yelled, play the song. We thought against Minnesota that Marvin Jones was a terrible play. And what does he do? He comes out and gets 4 touchdowns. And he dropped the 5th touchdown. He would have had a 5th touchdown. I mean,
Marvin
he was on
Jones
my
is
bed.
crazy. Also, Matt Stafford, one of my highest redraft QB owned, only in the leagues that don't matter. Right. Because you know what? His wife was dealing with a lot of crazy things. Yes, flex shame. No,
that is a good one. Oh, Barron's watching on Periscope, huh? That's cool. Or is that from Twitter?
That's the same thing. That is the
same
thing. So you have in your second flex play of the week, give it to us again on a quick.
Philip Dorsett
as your second flex play on the week. Last week, Al, I had the choice to play Randall Cobb or Philip Dorsett. And I went ahead and stupidly played Randall Cobb, okay? And I only picked Cobb because I really felt like Amari Cooper was injured. I just thought he wasn't going to play as great. There was potential. And Cobb almost had the touchdown. I literally popped my entire body in half when he was on the goal line outstretching. Would have won me the entire week, literally on this play. But it's okay. We live to tell another day.
All those reviews are killing the NFL, right? I mean, just
killing.
You know what? I heard a great idea, this week. That somebody had said microchip the ball, so when it hits the goal line, you'll know automatically. There's no need for review.
They could microchip both ends, the middles, the
whole thing.
The whole thing. My second flex play on the week says, now there was a big trade this week. Says, what were a couple big trades on the offensive side this week?
I know where you're going with this. You're talking about the Emmanuel Sanders trade.
Nope. Not talking about the Emmanuel Sanders trade, although love that trade. Another one says,
that had fantasy impact.
Mohamed Sanu going over to New England this week says, but Mohamed Sanu's not who I'm thinking. Calvin Ridley, one of the guys I was just so high on this season. I was super high on Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, a surefire WR2 last year in fantasy. I drafted him as a WR2, and he has not been performing that well. And he's really been disappointing. I've been touting, but finally, if Mohamed Sanu is gone, yes, it means a lot more for Austin Hooper. It means a lot more for Devontae Freeman. But now we have a real athletic superhuman who is good at the game of football on one of the most explosive offenses in the league. You have to believe that it is an anomaly that Matt Ryan is not able to take that team that's a really nice, they're older outside of Calvin Ridley, but they are good and they will come back. It's not like Pittsburgh. You're not starting a rookie or a young QB. Okay, Matt Ryan is the quarterback of that team. Some drafted Matt Ryan as a QB, top 5, in redraft.
Well, he's been good. It just he had one bad week and the team is terrible. But for fantasy, he's actually been all right.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been able to find Calvin Ridley with the consistency that he did last year. That has to regress back to the mean. And if you drafted Calvin Ridley and you've kept him this long, there's no trades, no nothing. I think from here on out, you have to be happy with him. He will produce for you. Calvin Ridley as my second flex play on the week says.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, Calvin Ridley is definitely probably the biggest beneficiary of the Mohamed Sanu trade. I think this is a disaster if you were in a deeper league owning Mohamed Sanu. It just, you just get it. But the good thing about with any Patriots are you just play them and then just hope for the best. Same thing with Philip Dorsett. Julian Edelman obviously gets his, but bringing it back to Calvin Ridley, presumably he should get targeted more, given that the number 2 receiver is gone. So he's probably ready to step up into a bigger role.
Now, says, as we get into the spooky, deep spookiness of Spookville flex play on the week, please tell me who is going to pop out and scare the fantasy community with a win for your week 8 flex play. Says, who is it? Spooky.
So you're looking for a deep flex play at this point?
I want a deep one. Okay, we hit our first 2. Let's rock a deep one. Just a real says. Well, insert a real deep one.
All right. Well, we agree that tight end's been a complete hellhole this year. It's so unless you have Darren Waller, you have Austin Hooper, you've either disappointed or you just can't find one to start. OJ Howard's out this week. We talked about that. Cameron Brate coming out of the bye. Before that, he had scored a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games. And Jameis Winston, that's the tight end that he throws the ball to. He hasn't had a ton of targets. Certainly he hasn't been, but now with OJ Howard out of the way, not that he was getting a ton anyway, and for some reason, Winston locks onto one receiver. It's either Godwin or Evans. He can't seem to distribute the ball evenly in any given game. But I think that if you're totally desperate at tight end, Cameron Brate's on every single waiver wire. I'm getting a ton of tight end questions this week asking me about, should I start Darren Waller? Should I start Noah Fant? And I said, dig a little deeper, turn over a few more rocks. I think Cameron Brate probably has a 38 to 44% chance for a touchdown.
Cameron Brate. Jameis loves Cameron Brate. It doesn't matter if OJ Howard's on the field. He'll find a way to target Cameron Brate. Now, according to rosterwatch.com's matchup tool, they are the 7th best matchup on the week for opposing tight ends. Tampa Bay going against Tennessee, but with the 25th worst matchup in the league against wide receivers. Godwin, Evans, of course, are going to get theirs. But in a bailout scenario, the ball is going to Cameron Brate. Book it for 6 catches for 60 yards. Are you feeling something like that, says? Potential touchdown odds?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would go in there knowing the floor is absolutely 0 for Cameron Brate. I mean, literally, you can walk out with a 0. But I think in a week where it's just so tough to find tight end help, the buys, disappointments, I think that he's got a better shot than most this week. And I think
now we got a commenter here, WikiLeaker again coming back here. What do you think about Jonnu Smith? Looked good last week. Tannehill's back. Tannehill can target the tight end on the opposite side of the field. Do you like a Jonnu Smith this week? Tennessee is going against Tampa Bay, the number 2 adversely matchup on rosterwatch.com against opposing tight ends. Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith, he was on the field for over 80% of the snaps. He caught all 3 of his targets for 60 yards. Sure, it's a perfectly reasonable play. I mean, like I said, he's in that year 2. He's basically at this point during week 8, it's not really the year 2 anymore for these guys. They're year 3, and rookies can no longer be considered rookies except at the quarterback position. They're basically they have experience. Think about a job that you've ever been at. If there's any job you've been at, sure, you're the new guy, but 2 months into the job, you'd kind of not like the new guy anymore. You kind of understand how things work, what the expectations are. So someone like Jonnu Smith, if they always say tight ends take a third year to break out, if the opportunity will be there for a handful of catches, he can convert them. He's an athletic guy. I like Jonnu Smith just as much as as any of these dart throws. Probably, with the fact that Mike brings that up, it's probably he probably has a good chance. So sure, Cameron Brate, Jonnu Smith. These are all dart throws, but I like that one. It's a really good play.
Says, are you ready for just a deep flex play? Just the deepest flex play.
Hold on, drum roll. I wish I had a drum roll sound effect right now.
Okay, are you ready for this? Says, are you ready?
Unveil it, baby.
This person, tell me who this person is. Says, tell me, and if our listeners could tell as well, please go ahead. 14 targets, 10 catches for 135 yards. Who is it, Says?
What position? Oh, so it's a wide receiver. Shoot, I don't know. What I don't know. Tell us who that is.
Alex Erickson, Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah.
14 targets, 10 catches, 135 yards. 94% snap rating against a great defense. Essentially not exactly great anymore without Jalen Ramsey, but still have lockdown corners. So if they're going into the Rams game where now they have Jalen Ramsey and it's going to lock down the number one receiver there in Tyler Boyd, expect another 10 targets for Alex Erickson with an 8-catch prop, 70 yards. Book it. Flex play.
Flex. Yeah, no, I mean, normally I'm not for chasing wide receiver production for guys that come out of nowhere off the waiver wire, but when you hit the key number, was it 14 targets you said, Flex Matt?
14 targets.
Yeah. 14 targets, that's worth picking up and putting on. I mean, if you want to start him in a tough situation, I actually am starting him in one league. I'm in a 14-team league, and those are tough, man. Yeah, I'm picking him up and starting me. I mean, 14 targets is unbelievable. That shows that the quarterback is looking for him. Now, I think that Dalton is in danger of a mid-game benching. I think
mid-game benching? Who else do they have on that team?
Ryan Finley out of North Carolina State. He was, I think, a 4th-round draft pick. He might have been a little later. I don't have it in front of me. But Dalton is not the future of that team. I don't think they're tied to him in any way. But Finley, I think he looked all right in the preseason. I mean, Cincinnati's got to get a look at him. They're going to have a high pick, and they need to know if they need to take a quarterback or not. So I think they need to get Finley some reps. So I still like Erickson as a play. I just think, again, that the rookie quarterback might be coming in, and that could be a good thing, actually. Sometimes, these receivers, these 3rd and 4th wide receivers, they practice with the backup QB, and then when they get into the game, they have instant chemistry with them. So I like Alex Erickson for all the reasons you highlighted. I think it should be noted that Dalton is in danger of a mid-game benching at any point.
Do you know why I think that will not happen?
Tell me.
If you're Andy Dalton and you've been with that team for that long, you got clout. It doesn't matter what it is. You have clout. Yep. And what is the number one thing that you might be saying if you're Andy Dalton and you're in fear of losing all of your millions and being regulated as a backup quarterback? What is the voice that is coming out of your mouth to the owner of that football team thinking, is Andy Dalton my future? What is the first thing that you're talking about to the owner of that football team as to why you are the guy?
What is it?
I'll tell you, Says. Thanks for asking. AJ Green is not on the field. Give me time to get AJ Green back on the field. Tyler Boyd performed better with AJ Green on the field. Everybody is just missing that extreme veteran presence and that chemistry and that excitement of having AJ Green around. Once he gets back, then and only then, give us 2-3 weeks. After that, you can bench him. After that, you can bench him.
Well, here's the counter to that, is that you want to take a look at Ryan. So Zach Taylor, the new head coach of Cincinnati Bengals, he drafted Finley. So Finley's his guy. He's not tied to Andy Dalton in any way. And it's clear Andy Dalton is nothing more than an average quarterback. All the metrics, the yards per attempt, all that other stuff that you would quarterback rating. So he's not going to be your future friend. Andy Dalton's the kind of guy in his peak that supported a team that had a strong defense, a strong running game, strong offensive line. But you really need to see what you have, because Cincinnati's going to have a top 3 pick. They're going to have a crack at one of those quarterbacks.
Why Says, would you see what you have? Would you not take the lure of a potential top 3 pick and just put yourself automatically in the race for a new one? And it's Andy Dalton we're talking about here. I mean, it's not like,
that's my point.
I mean, he's literally on Eli Manning's level to that team as far as you can't just bench that guy. I mean, you got to have a Daniel Jones to bench that guy.
So I disagree with you there, and I'll tell you why. I think Eli wrongly was endeared to the New York fan base because of the 2 Super Bowl runs. Andy Dalton hasn't even won a playoff game. It just, he's just going to be another quarterback in the long line of, yeah, sure. Oh, remember when Andy Dalton was the quarterback for a long stretch? There was certainly an Andy Dalton error.
There was good. There was good.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where they were, there was like a 5-week stretch in the beginning of like 4 seasons ago where they were talking about Dalton in the MVP race, but that quickly, tailed off. Listen, he's a perfectly fine NFL quarterback. He's certainly not going to be the quarterback on their next playoff team. This coach drafted Zach Taylor. I think they want to at least see what they have so they can know how to proceed. If now say Zach Taylor comes in and pulls a Gardner Minshew and lights the league on fire, then maybe that
Zach Taylor or Ryan Finley.
Zach Taylor's the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. You just said drafted Zach Taylor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant that Zach Taylor drafted Ryan Finley.
Oh,
I'm sorry
got it. That. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Yep, no problem. So basically, I think that he liked him enough to take him in the 4th round. Now, I know 4th round is not the odds are he's not going to pan out. I mean, 1st round quarterbacks don't often pan out. Certainly not 4th round quarterbacks. It just usually the base rate says it does not. So I just think at this point of the season, it's a total wash. The season's lost. Why not at least get an 8-game sample of the rookie you drafted? Likely you're going to have to take another quarterback in the first 3 picks, which Cincinnati's going to have. But if you catch lightning in a bottle and Finley is the answer, and again, there's probably like a 4% chance that there is, then you're in a better position than you thought you were. At this point, if you continue with Dalton, you're just going to have to take a quarterback, and you're not going to know what you have in Finley. That's all. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, and I think that there's some merit to what you're saying, is that Andy Dalton is endeared to the fan base, but I don't think this new coach is tied to him in any way or has any loyalty to him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen. It could be just like a Josh Rosen. You throw the guy in, the guy stinks anyway, your fan base begins to hate you, and then basically you can just go from there. And that's a forward mountain top from there. Okay, because you could put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in and then have the fan base be happy about it. And then another deep, dark, just darkest flex play is any receiver on the Miami Dolphins team weekly. Basically, you could throw a Preston Williams, a Devontae Parker in this week. Please go ahead. Like, be welcome to. Ryan Fitzpatrick's actually a decent quarterback, says. But we've got about 13 minutes left, says, and I want to ask you a question.
We're doing a full hour? Okay, that's cool.
You, sir, my friend, I think, are the owner of Joe Mixon in our Dynasty League. Are you not?
I am. I own him everywhere.
How incredibly upset are you? And are you still holding out hope because you're a truther of Joe Mixon?
Yeah, well, Joe Mixon's talent's undeniable. I thought that he showed a lot of the same traits that Le'Veon Bell showed as far as pass catching running back. Now, he's been proven that he can't be a running back that transcends the horrible conditions. I thought maybe he could do at least what he did last year, was finish as like running back 11. I mean, on the season, he's running back 46. I mean, he's not even startable. He's just down the ranking so far. Now he's only 22 years old. He'll be 23 when next season starts.
So much time.
Yeah, presumably, he's got a hashtag 2 to 3 year window to improve, and especially for Dynasty. So for Dynasty, I mean, I'm hopeful. I think that Cincinnati has to address the offensive line problems. I'm sure they will. But yeah, Mixon, if he gets even competent all-line play, I think he'll be all right. I still like the talent, but obviously the situation is worse than zero.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, says when you're trading your star left tackle to the LA Rams, your veteran left tackle And we see that right on the Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks 2 years ago was one of the worst rated run offenses in the league, and the worst rated offensive lines. They trade for a veteran left tackle in Dwayne Brown, and then all of a sudden they're creeping up. They're 18th. Chris Carson's looking good. Guys, a veteran left tackle is all your line needs if they're a bunch of young, starved, or, for just the presence in the locker room.
Do you agree, though, then about you agree about Mixon, then, given what you're talking about offensive line play? Like, you still believe in his talent, or are you totally washing your hands of someone like Mixon?
No, so today in a league, got the sleeper message. Looked at it. Hey, man, totally out on Mixon. Anybody, first one to put my hand up was me. Okay, because
redraft or dynasty?
In redraft, right. Not dynasty. But obviously, I tried to buy him in dynasty from you. You said no. Okay,
well,
I thought I gave a great offer. It was not cockamamie. It was just like a second-round pick.
Yeah.
Which realistically, I mean, you could, with the idea that you can couple picks and players, you can figure a way into that being a worthwhile trade if you're out on Mixon.
Where would Joe Mixon go if he was thrown into the draft pool next year? He'd probably go like 6 overall.
Next year, here's the thing. We're about to do a redraft league next week. Yeah. Mid-season, I don't see Mixon going in the first 8 rounds.
No, I meant like you said in Dynasty.
No, I know in Dynasty.
Second round rookie pick.
He would be an 8th round pick in Dynasty right now. Dynasty redrafts? No, I'm just joking. He's probably a Dynasty startup. He's probably 5th. Oh. Dynasty startup redraft. He's probably a 5th.
No, I think you have it right. I don't think people would. I think he'd be going in the 7th, 8th round. I mean, but you said, just circling back to what you asked me before, you said that you offered a 2nd round rookie pick for Joe Mixon, and the reason I think that's not where the value is because if you put him into the rookie pool for next year in rookie drafts, where would he get drafted? And likely the middle of the 1st round, probably even higher. If you had all the rookies available plus Joe Mixon, that's all I meant.
And that is exactly why says people need to listen to the Flex Network in the off season. Okay, this is a big deal. Okay, that one at Alan Seslowski, follow him on Twitter, aka #seasonlong_says, as we find a way to get out of here in a minute. This guy's amazing. I mean, just the idea of dynasty content where you can legit listen to somebody who is willing to answer your questions, willing to dive deep. We have probably about 10 to 15 to 20 people ish that literally like hinge their entire teams off of our decisions. Exactly, like almost as if we were paying, they should pay us to run their leagues for him. We got guys literally asking us questions every single day, and that's like full teams. Now you got guys that ask us questions, every now and then, just hey, what do you think? Hey, what do you think? And we love to be in the think pools of how great anybody's team could be. Needs to have the Flex Network in it. Okay, because at Alan Seslowski is willing to give you that thought that you're probably not thinking about. Again, just like Joe Mixon, if you were to draft Joe Mixon in your dynasty pool of running backs, where would he go? That's a good question, man, because you would almost want to bet on the experience. A guy's been on an NFL team. He knows how fast the game is. He's succeeded at that. You'd almost take that. He'd be the 101, right? Joe Mixon would be the 101 in next year's draft.
I mean, I don't think the 101, but he'd be up there. He'd be up there.
Oh my gosh, there's a nugget. There is a nugget. One at Alan Seslowski just claimed that there is a better 101 running back than Joe Mixon coming out of the draft class next year. Says, you want to tease it or just want to give it? Do you just want to tease it? Tease it for our dynasty content following this season?
Yeah, I mean, what's it called? Swift. DeAndre Swift was it called. There's a few running backs at the top of the class. So I already started kind of looking at these guys a little bit, and there's about 4 or 5 guys at the top that I think are really going to be difference makers. DeAndre Swift is definitely going to be one of them. He's a Georgia running back. I'm just looking at his size right here. He's only 20 years old, so he'll be 21 when he comes into the draft. He's 5'9", 216 pounds. I mean, he's like a bulldog. And if he lands in the right spot, man, I mean, I think he'll be the 101. There's also going to be, we only have 4 minutes. I don't want to go on a whole dynasty rage, and also there's a receiver on Alabama, Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry Jeudy is just, I mean, he has a chance to be one of the elite receivers in the NFL. I think those 2 guys in 1 QB leagues are certainly in play. And in Superflex leagues, Joe Burrow is just setting college football on fire right now. And he has a chance I think he'll probably be the number 1 overall pick in the regular draft, the real NFL draft. And if he lands in the right spot, or if it doesn't, Superflex leagues, he's probably going to be the 101.
I'm hearing so much about Jonathan Taylor too from Wisconsin.
He belongs up there.
He belongs in the top, but I wouldn't say that his measurables are going to put him as the 3rd or 4th running back in this class. Yep. But he's that guy to me that if he goes to the right team, the right situation, he's a Chris Carson. He's a guy that's going to take and hold control of that job for as long as his talent allows him, as long as the team believes in him. And lastly says, to get us out of here on things, a guy that I'm really intrigued in to buy low on. I feel like it might be a buy low. It might not be. What are your final thoughts on Tevin Coleman? It seems like he's been getting the work even when Breida has looked good. It seemed like the offense, the coach just really wants to give him the ball. He's the number 1 running back in that offense. Jimmy G has not looked good at all. They are relying on Tevin Coleman. What do you think about him as a buy low and redraft?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get him, I agree with you. He's certainly the running back you want to own in that offense. I believe in the Shanahan offense.
Is he a buy low to you? Would you categorize him as a buy low or no? That's a bold statement.
I mean, yeah, I think that he's a fair value guy. I mean, I don't know if his owner is going to, everyone's always looking for running back help. There's no one that has like too many running backs in a 12-team league that's semi-sharp. So if you're in some 10-team league, or if you're in a league where you're just kind of, people aren't paying attention, sure, you could figure out a way to extract Tevin Coleman off someone's team. But in most leagues where people are paying attention, I think they need Tevin Coleman in their starting lineup, and you're probably gonna have to pay for a value. But absolutely, he's probably gonna. If you're asking buy low in a sense where his value will go up for the rest of the season, I believe that. I think you're right on that.
Follow one at Alan Seslowski at ALANSES Low Sky. Follow the Flex Network at the Flex Network 1. Says as our final sign off, our bet with Roster Watch, Curtis Samuel versus DJ Moore, is looking nicer and nicer as we go with a tough matchup this week against San Francisco. I'd really like to see where our bet goes this week. Your final thoughts on that as we leave our Friday Night Flex Finder plays of the week.
We want Curtis Samuel, baby. We're rooting for him, because if we win that bet, Alex Dunlap of Roster Watch is coming on this podcast.
Yes, and it might feel like that's a really big deal because we got Byron. Byron's on with us on Sunday mornings with our Flex Finders, which is essentially what we do. It's our start sit, but we're finding your flex plays. Those are the questions that the people, the masses of Flex Nation come, they answer, or they get answers. They ask these questions, and we will be joined live with at RosterWatch. Follow them at rosterwatch.com. Says your final words, brother.
That's it, my man. May all your players stay healthy.
May all your players stay healthy. Eventually, we're going to get the doc on, Jesse Morse. We're going to get him at Fantasy Doctors on Twitter. I think that's what it is. Also, next week, we got a replay official in the replay booth of the Chicago Bears game.
That's confirmed.
We're going to promote that all week long, starting with hopefully our flex our waiver wire podcast of the week. We got you with Alan Seslowski with DFS Army doing fantasy basketball, DFS, everything. Follow DFS Army on Twitter. Use promo code Flex Army to get a whatever promo you need on there. Follow the Flex Network at the Flex Network 1. Thanks, Says. I love doing this with you, brother.
Yeah, man. Good hanging
we're on
with you,
this
man.
awesome, crazy train. You're on location. Tell your family what's up. We are the Flex Network. Join in on our Flex Finder podcast Friday night. Our start sits on Sunday morning. Shane! No!
Shane
Spooky Shane! Oh, no! Bye-bye, Flex Network.